Carol Burnett, welcome back again to TCM.
Thank you, Dave. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I had a great Thanksgiving, got a lot done on Black Friday today. So yeah, feeling good. And now I'm ready to talk about some more terrific films with you. So for anyone who was not with us last night, we're showing great classic musicals, followed by the takeoff sketches that you did on the Carol Burnett show in the late 60s and 1970s. Now, the first one that we're going to do tonight is a little bit different because the spoof that we're about to show later is the Doyley Sisters, which was your takeoff of the Dolly Sisters with Betty Grable. For music rights issues, we were not able to show the Dolly Sisters. So what we are going to show is Sweet Rosie O'Grady, another great Betty Grable musical comedy from 1943 by the same director, Irving Cummings, as the Dolly Sisters. But I know that Betty Grable was such an important figure for you. Why was she such a favorite of yours?
When I was growing up, I loved every movie that she was in. And years ago, we bought the house that Betty Grable and Harry James had lived in. And then when I started my show, Betty Grable came on as a guest with Martha Raye. That was quite a week. She was so wonderful. And she came over to the house. We said, you know, we're living in your old house. You want to come over? And she came over and spent some time walking through the house and got a little teary-eyed. And she was just a delight to work with. Now, Martha Raye was out there. She was just wild, bawdy and with it and slapsticky. And Betty had this very wry sense of humor. So the two of them together as guests that week, well, I couldn't stop laughing. And Betty would undercut Martha every time. She had a great sense of humor.
I love it. So as we're about to watch a Betty Grable movie, in this case, Sweet Rosie O'Grady, where she plays this burlesque dancer who has success overseas in the UK, but then she gets outed by a Police Gazette reporter played by Robert Young, who explains to everyone that she's actually from Brooklyn. What would you say sets her apart as far as her screen presence?
You know, there's that thing they call it. She had it. There was just that quality that makes a star. You know, you couldn't take your eyes off of her.
And at this time, when this movie came out, she was the #1 box office draw in America. Sweet Rosie O'Grady, this film was one of 2 films that she put out in 1943 that were top 10 grossers of the year. I mean, this was really the peak of her success. And what's weird is at the same time, I went back to look at the New York Times review of this movie. And the review struck me as a little bit sexist, but the critics said that Betty Grable has as much screen personality as a marshmallow. And I thought to myself,
who wrote that?
I didn't have, it actually didn't say the person's name, it just had the article. But I thought it was very sexist that this writer probably wouldn't say something like that about a man. But clearly the American public was of a different viewpoint.
Absolutely, you know, that's ridiculous.
Right, she's much more than a marshmallow.
Oh yeah.
Was it easy for you then for her to be top of the list? You know, for someone to spoof?
No, I didn't spoof her. What we did was spoof the Dolly Sisters, that movie,
yeah,
you know.
For sure.
But what we did was very unusual, and I don't think any other variety show ever has done it. We did it only the one time. It was the whole show.
Right, 40 minutes plus.
We did 40 minutes, all original music and lyrics and everything. And once it aired, I remember I got a call from my favorite movie star, Jimmy Stewart. And he said, well, I just love that.
Wow.
Yeah, he called and said, I just love what you did with the Dolly Sisters, called the Doyley Sisters.
Right. How great that you were able to, and that's what we do on TCM, how great that you were able to keep these movies alive by paying homage to them and tweaking them just a little bit on your show.
Well, the good thing, too, is that by themselves, if you didn't know what we were doing, they were amazing and funny.
Yep.
And if you knew the movie, it was twice as funny and twice as amazing.
Yeah, it's true.
So, you know, it pleased everybody, thank goodness, or most everybody.
Right. Well, a little bit later tonight, we'll see your takeoff sketch, the Doyley Sisters. And although we can't watch the Dolly Sisters, we'll get a great taste of Betty Grable right here. So here she is from 1943, Sweet Rosie O'Grady. It's such a delight to watch anything that Betty Grable does. I see why she's such a favorite of yours.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the sketch that we're about to watch is different from a typical Carol Burnett show spoof because this one...
This was the whole show.
Wow.
The entire show. And we, you know, we learned it all in, well, actually in 3 days because we would have a run-through. We'd start on Monday and we'd have a run-through on Wednesday. for the writers and everybody, and then we tape block on Thursday and then do it on Friday. But again, the material was so good. When it's good, it's easy to learn.
I can't imagine learning a 40 or 42-minute sketch in 3 days, but you did it.
Yeah, we
and
did.
You made it look easy. Well, here it is from 1972, The Doily Sisters. Carol, my hat's off to you and all of your castmates for learning that and delivering it so perfectly. And because there's no special guest stars, it really allows these core cast to shine.
And I'm sorry you couldn't show the real movie, but because this was a real takeoff on it.
Right.
In the original, when Betty Grable winds up in the hospital, she was bandaged and had full makeup.
Of course.
Now, we did it where I had full makeup and
one little
patch, and Harvey went, oh, my God.
That's my favorite moment in the whole thing. You're hardly going to recognize her. It's funny.
One little patch. And the song that I did afterwards, like She Doesn't Know Who She Is,
right.
Hello, Who Are You,
yeah.
was written the night before by Mitzi Welch, who was one of our writers with her husband, Ken Welch. And she said she ought to have an amnesia song. She wrote that Thursday night, and we taped it on Friday, but I learned it early that morning before we went into rehearsal. But it's so well written, it was easy to remember. But
That's
it's a
insane.
very funny song.
Yes, it's hilarious.
And Vicki doing that dumb voice.
The three of us are gonna form a duet?
A trio.
Oh, that's even better.
She stole every scene she was in.
Jenny and Rosie. Now, obviously, with all of the transitions and costume changes and makeup changes, there must have been a lot of tape breaks in this one, right?
Well, I don't like to keep our studio audience waiting.
Right.
So I used to have a bet with the crew that I could do a skin out change faster than they can move the couch over there. So everybody would go fast. So we did not take a long time to do it. So our studio audience, it might have taken an hour and a half, a couple of hours. So it's like people sitting to watch a Broadway show, a couple of hours, and that's it.
Right.
So that they're not sitting there forever waiting for us to do all our thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so our whole gang, you know, we just boom, 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 boom.
And we have to give special mention to Bob Mackie on this one because those costumes, the makeup, the lipstick and the powder and the perfume.
All of that.
It's mind-blowing that he did all of that, and they're so intricate, all of them.
All of it. And
Week after week.
detailed and funny. I don't think there's anybody who is a designer can touch Bob Mackie with everything. He can do beautiful stuff. He can do funny stuff. He can do costumes. He can do all incredible. You know, so there's some bit that all they do is this and all they do is that. He could do it all. And with this, you know, 65 to 70 costumes a week he would design. Now do the math. Over 11 years, that's about 17,000 costumes he designed.
It's remarkable. And he's still going strong
Yes,
today.
he
We
is,
should
yeah.
let people know. What was it like for you to have your own Betty Grable hair?
Well, I wore that wig a lot in different sketches and all, you know, it was kind of a standard that Bob did, yeah.
Did you have a favorite costume? I mean, I'm thinking back to the great orange costume that you had on in this one. I mean, were there favorite looks that you got to wear?
They were all wonderful, you know, and
really
I loved
were.
the fact that he had Vicki and me looking like twins, which June Haver and Betty Grable looked like in the original
For sure.
Dolly Sisters, you know.
When you think back, and here you are telling me that this sketch, of course, was the entire show that week. Can you believe that you got to do this?
No. And you know, I'm grateful. Nobody likes to get old, but I'm old. And but I'm glad I was there at that time because today you couldn't do that. There would be no network that would, again, costumes, 28-piece live orchestra.
Wow.
Guest stars, this, that, so forth. It couldn't be done today.
Well, thank God you did it.
Me too.
And thank God we could
I'm
show it.
glad I was there then because I had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it today.
Huh. Well, thank you so much, Carol. Stick around because we have another film to talk about next.
Yeah.
A terrific musical biopic starring Red Skelton and Fred Astaire from 1950. Carol, thanks so much for sticking with me tonight here on TCM.
Thank you, Dave.
Happy Thanksgiving weekend to you.
And you.
It's been so much fun watching these great classic musicals with you and also your takeoff sketches from the Carol Burnett Show. Up next is Three Little Words from 1950. the biopic starring Fred Astaire and Red Skelton.
Yep.
Of basically Burt Kalmar and Harry Ruby's songwriting career. This was one of several biopics about songwriters that came out around the same time, Till the Clouds Roll By or Words and Music. Was this a subgenre of musical that you liked?
Yes, so that's why we wanted to do one about a songwriting team.
Right.
Yeah.
Later on, after we watch the film, we're going to watch your Tin Pan Alley spoof. But it's fun to watch Fred Astaire and Red Skelton together in this. This is a different kind of performance, I feel like, from Fred Astaire. He really gets to show off a little bit more acting
That's
chops
because Red Skelton wasn't Ginger Rogers.
Exactly.
You don't like it, huh? Sure, sure. It's a nice little tune. You ought to do something with it sometime. You ought to do something with that shirt, too.
Now, you and Red Skelton both worked early in your careers on the Gary Moore
Back
show.
in the Covered Wagon days, yes. Red was a guest on the Gary Moore show. You know, he could paint. He could draw and paint. And I have a caricature that he did of me as a clown. It's just very sweet.
Wow. And then only a few years ago, you received an award from the Red Skelton Museum, an America's Clown Award.
Yeah.
So it's all coming full circle.
And it's funny, I never really liked clowns. They scared me.
They are a little scary.
Yeah.
Why do you think this kind of 1910s time frame worked so well for musicals?
I don't know. Well, again, there are no more musicals, and that was the era. And so almost every studio, they were into musicals. Even Warner Brothers, which was really known for Jimmy Cagney and, you know, Humphrey Bogart and so forth. But even they jumped into musicals.
So this film that we're about to watch has a terrific cast, not only Red Skelton and Fred Astaire, but also Vera Ellen and Arlene Dahl. But we have to pay special mention to
Debbie Reynolds.
Debbie Reynolds. This is very early on for her, and we get to hear her perform I Want to Be Loved by You, but it's dubbed by
Helen King. Yeah.
The boop, boop, we do.
But she looks so cute doing it.
She really does.
Yeah.
Boop-ba-doo.
Since we're about to watch a movie based on the lives of two songwriters, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the people that wrote the songs for these original sketches on the Carol Burnett show. It was your regular writers, or did you
regular
bring in...
writers? Billy Angelus and Buzz Cohan, and Ken and Mitzi Welch, Artie Malvin, and they were just our regular group. And
How did they also have such musical skill, though, in addition to...
Well, they were all musicians. Mitzi Welch had started out as a singer. She was with the Glenn Miller Band at one point. So she and Kenny married, and Kenny actually was a special material on the Gary Moore show, and he wrote with Mike Nichols the first Julie and Carol at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
And then he and Mitzi got married, and she was a terrific writer, and I was so fortunate. But every one of the team, they were just great.
When you think back to making these musical sketches, I know you only had days to learn them, but what about the songwriters? Did they know just a couple days before what kind of songs they were going to have to write, or did they have a couple weeks' notice?
Well, they would have a notice that we were going, I would like to do a takeoff on the Dolly Sisters. So they would start thinking about that and see, and then they would watch the movie or whatever. And but they were fast. Well, like I said, Mitzi wrote that one song the night before I had to record it for the Dolly Sisters.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
Well, the lives of these two writers are definitely interesting. This movie plays a little fast and loose with the facts, but it's still quite entertaining.
Right.
So let's take a look at it. Here it is from 1950, Fred Astaire and Red Skelton in 3 Little Words. Well, Carol, as I said before the film, I love 3 Little Words. I think it's just very well done. And you guys spoofed it to perfection, only on season 2 of the show, right?
That's right. It was very early.
Well, here it is from 1968, The Tin Pan Alley Story. Carol, that is really one of the best takeoff sketches that you all did. You are all just at the top of your game. There's so much to talk about. I just love everything, the character names, Pots and Pans. I mean, you must have been delighted when your writers came up with that.
Melvin and Phoebe, yeah.
Right? It's so brilliant. It's so fun to see you all spoofing the Tin Pan Alley genre. And of course, Tin Pan Alley was that area of Manhattan in the early 20th century.
Or they would come in and try to sell a song.
Right. What was it like for you to have Nanette Fabray around?
Well, she was a guest quite often and always a lot of fun. I love Nanny, yeah. She was so wonderful in this as kind of the evil other woman.
And I noticed when she kind of has that showgirl outfit on, it reminded me very much of what Bob Mackie designed for Mitzi Gaynor.
Yeah.
You know, those great kind of showgirl outfits.
That's one of the reasons we discovered Bob was when I'd seen Mitzi Gaynor show and saw all the costumes he had put her in, but not only the pretty ones, but the funny ones too. And we said, "Who is that designer?" Bob Mackie.
Mel Torme is terrific in this.
Mel, yeah.
And he gets to wear a terrific green double-breasted suit.
And Rickles at the beginning, when pots and pans kind of start working together, and Rickles starts doing his own bit. He totally improvised that. And that was Don. It cracked me up when he was doing that.
And I have to imagine that bit with Don where he's having trouble putting the phone, that was all improvised.
Yeah, it was an accident. Again, you don't stop. You keep going.
And you must have loved that.
I did.
Because so much of what we all remember about the Carol Burnett show are the moments where you all are cracking each other up.
You know, it wasn't that often. Out of 200 and some odd shows, I maybe 20 times. And mostly it was when Tim was trying to get Harvey. But people remember it because it was so delicious.
Right.
But it was never on purpose.
Of course not. When you think back to the guest stars here, Don Rickles and Mel Torme and Nanette Fabray, you know, it allowed them to show off different talents that they had, but maybe to do something a little bit different from what they
Mel especially, see, Nanette had an opportunity to be funny when she worked with Sid Caesar. And also she sang up a storm and could move, and she was beautiful. And so it wasn't a stretch for her. And Mel used to love to come to our show because usually if he'd been on a variety show, he'd do a number and maybe something in a finale. But to have a whole role to create, and he loved it, you know. And
one thing I also found interesting about this one, considering that it's from earlier in the run of the show, this sketch used more close-ups and less of the kind of full stage. I wasn't sure if that was something that evolved as the time went on.
that was the director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes you up close to the action in certain scenes, which I thought was really interesting. You guys had so much fun with this,
We did.
and we all got to
And Mel,
enjoy
of
it.
course, was actually playing the piano.
You can tell.
You know.
I'm a piano player myself, so I'm always looking
Are
very
you?
closely at people's hands when they're playing the piano,
Yeah.
and I could tell that Mel was a real
Yeah.
player.
No,
That's fun to watch. All right, Carol, we have one more movie to discuss. Will you stick around?
I'm not going anywhere.
You have no choice. Okay, good. Stay with us because coming up next, Carol and I will be back to introduce a classic musical from 1933. Carol Burnett, so nice to be with you all night on this Thanksgiving Friday.
Happy Friday.
Thank you for sticking around with us. We've got one more movie to talk about, and it's a real classic from 1933, 42nd Street. Directed by Lloyd Bacon, but really kind of directed by Busby Berkeley,
Yeah, of course.
who did all
Yeah.
of the great musical
Yeah.
numbers. And I can only imagine that the Busby Berkeley genre must have been something you were very excited to do a takeoff on.
Well, was very excited, and so was our choreographer, Ernie Flatt, who was with us all 11 years, and I knew he also choreographed the Gary Moore show. But in this one, you will never see a more frightened human being in your life because I had to learn to tap dance, and I had never done it before, and I was terrified.
You would never know that you had never done it before, Carol.
Oh, if you look at my face, I'm not very happy doing it.
Well, for people who are about to watch the movie 42nd Street, pay special attention to Ruby Keeler because she's the character that you end up playing in the spoof. But we should tell people this cast is just tremendous. Warner Baxter, Ginger Rogers, Dick Powell, Una Merkel, B.B. Daniels. There's so many wonderful people in this film. It just makes it so much fun.
Right.
But I want to ask about the Warner Baxter character because he's a tough cookie.
You're going to work and sweat and work some more. You're going to work days and you're going to work nights and you're going to work between time when I think you need it.
And that was Harvey.
And that's Harvey in the spoof. Have you ever in your travels, whether on stage or television or anything, had a director like that who was a real taskmaster?
I've had good luck. You know, I remember Robert Altman. I loved working with him. I did a wedding with him and a couple of other things. He got us all together before we were going to film. And he said, here's the story. And if any of you have an idea about a scene that we're going to do, for dialogue, or come to me, I want to hear it. Because he said some of my best scenes, you never hear a director say that, have been contributed to me by my actors.
Wow. How generous.
Tell me. And John Huston with Annie, he did 2 takes. Boom. He just knew what he wanted. I remember I went to him on the first scene that I was going to do, and I was nervous. It's Miss Hannigan. And I went to him and I said, Mr. Huston, he said, call me John, dear. And I said, how do you see me doing this scene? And he said, just cavort, dear. Just cavort. Okay.
Was that enough
That was
for you?
his direction.
Right. Wow,
Just cavort. That's what I hired you to do. You know?
Well, that's what a professional does. Takes that.
So when you ask about directors, I've had the best, and they've been very good.
There's so much to enjoy in 42nd Street, particularly the end, because that's when you get to all the Busby Berkeley numbers. There's Young and Healthy, the great number with Dick Powell, where you see all the women's legs with the camera going through.
And the way it was shot, you know, with the camera above everybody.
It's just amazing what Busby Berkeley was able to achieve in the 1930s, isn't it? Yeah. And whenever I see Dick Powell, I always think of Debbie Reynolds, because, of course, she had such a crush on him. And then they finally got to work together in Susan Slept Here. So whenever I see Dick Powell, I always think that's Debbie Reynolds' crush. And
dreams do come true.
Isn't that right? When you think back to growing up and watching these classic films, and the reason I love 42nd Street is the backstage of it all, right?
Yeah.
A person who breaks their ankle and someone has to go on at the last minute. Were those the kinds of films that you found yourself attracted to?
Definitely. Musicals more than anything. They took me to a whole other world. And I would come home, and my best girlfriend, Isla Mae, and I would play Betty Grable and June Haver. I, of course, insisted I had to be Betty.
All right. Well, we have a lot more to talk about when we watch your spoof 43rd Street. But right now, from 1933, let's watch the movie. Here is 42nd Street. Well, Carol, as I said before the movie, I just love watching those Busby Berkeley numbers. And to see you do your own takeoff on them is really special. So here it is from 1971. Do the honors.
43rd Street.
Enjoy. Carol, I love your 43rd Street spoof. Was it always so clear that you were going to be Ruby Keeler?
Oh, absolutely. And I thought Mel did very well doing Dick Powell.
Yes, he did.
He kind of sounded like him and everything. And then, of course, wonderful Nan and Harvey being the director and even Lyle being the assistant choreographer.
Yeah.
As I said, I was terrified when I had to do that tap dance because I'm not a dancer and I'm certainly not a tap dancer. And so when Ernie Flatt, our choreographer, said, well, you got to, because that's the whole point of the show. So he blocked it out, and I had one of our dancers, stay with me after rehearsals to work with me all week to do that. But I was absolutely terrified.
It came out great.
I got through it. But it was not great, but I got through it.
Well, now that you're telling me this, it kind of mirrors the 42nd Street movie because Ruby Keeler's character has to cram to go on on the opening night.
So I used that in my mind, okay.
And of course, I love the fact that you take this small bit from the movie where she faints, and then
she keeps fainting.
You do it that she just keeps fainting over and over again with the leg up each time. I mean, it's great. I mean, those physical comedy bits, were those fun for you to help come up with?
Yes, I started doing physical comedy on the Gary Moore Show. I'd never done it. Neil Simon was the junior writer on Gary's show. We used to call him Doc Simon. And he wrote a sketch. Durward Kirby, who was also a second banana on the show along with me, he's in a hospital room and his head is all bandaged. And I come in and I'm saying, Jack, how do you feel? And he said, not too good, Jill. I said, why'd you have to go up that hill? Well, I needed to fetch a pail of water. And then I fell down and broke my crown. And then the doctor comes in, and it's scary. He said, Jill, what are you going to do? And my line was, I guess I'll just go tumbling after. And I was supposed to jump through the window and leave, okay? And that was written. So in rehearsal, we just said, okay, Carol jumps out of the window here. Okay, now we're on the set. I had never done a stunt. And the director came out and he said, are you sure you know how to? Oh, sure. I can do it. I can do it. No, I had never. So comes through, I said, I'll just go tumbling after. And I jumped out of the window and I landed on a mattress. And I sat up and I said, oh, thanks for the mattress. thought I was going to go splat. I didn't even think to look at all. But from then on, I taught myself how to fall and do things like when we did the Gone with the Wind sketch.
We talked about this, and you
I fell down
in
the
such a way.
stairs like 9 times in one day with rehearsal and all of that.
And you never tensed up your body.
Exactly. I remember Jerry Lewis called me once, and he was worried about me. He said, "I'm worried about you. You take too many pratfalls."
You do.
But I was better off than he was because he really injured himself.
Wow.
But I never did.
When you think back to this 43rd Street sketch, was it fun to be yelled at by Nanette Fabre?
Oh, I loved it. Wasn't she funny in that?
Hilarious.
I kept destroying this poor woman. She was good about it.
You guys were so good at doing a joke over again, but not too much. Like you knew exactly when
To stop. Sometimes.
Of course, I took note of your kiss with not only Mel Torme in this sketch, but also Harvey. You were quite the kissing bandit in this sketch. Yeah. Was that enjoyable?
It's a nice way to earn money.
I also noticed that great edit where the suitcase opens.
Oh, yes.
And then the next shot is the huge suitcase with all the dancers in it.
Yeah.
And that must have been a real thrill for your directors and writers to come up with ways to...
Absolutely. And that, again, was a combination of Ernie Flatt and our director, Dave Powers.
This one, when I watch it, I really think, and I know you're being very modest about your tap dancing, but you really could do it all, and you can do it all. Singing, dancing, serious moments, hilarious moments. I was just in awe of everything that you were able to accomplish. It's the perfect format for you.
Thank you.
As is this, by the way.
I love that. I am so thrilled that we're able to do this. I can't thank you enough. I am, before with all the Mildred Pierce and the other ones, and now doing the musicals, you've made my Thanksgiving pretty special.
I'm so glad, Carol. It's been lovely to be with you these past 2 nights. Let's figure out a way to do this a third time, okay?
I'm so glad we had this time together.
That's what I'm always thinking. Well, please stick with us because coming up next on TCM, another terrific movie. As always, it's uncut and commercial-free.